Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about the Hifiman Sundara, which is a headphone I've been looking forward to trying for a long time. You will want to make sure that you have sufficient amplification for this. I'd recommend a full-size desktop amplifier. The planar headphones tend to take a good amount of power to get going. You can probably get decent sound on these without investing in one, but I don't think it'll reach its full potential unless you really have a good amount of juice to throw at it. I've heard a lot of good things about it. I've also had and heard not that great things about Hifiman build quality in the sense of how their headphones hold up over time. So I was really curious to try it out and see for myself what it's like. I think it's important that we talk about the build quality of the Hifiman Sundara though, just given the experience a lot of people have had with issues with the build quality and also with the just perceived reliability issues of it. So full caveat here, the ones that I bought were open box, but this is my second time buying Hifiman, something that was used, and I've had a bad experience with it. So something to keep in mind is if you buy this, you may want to make sure that you get something new. The first issue that I have when you look at this metal here, this feels like something fabricated in a workshop or something. So you get this feeling of quality in the sense that this is heavy, it's metallic, there's all this stuff here that feels like somebody spent some money to put it together. But when you actually look in detail at like this ring here, like it feels slightly sharp. The metal is kind of heavy. When you slide these up and down, I know a lot of people have said, you know, you start, I don't know if you can see that, but like you start scratching actually the paint off when you use it. So in the hand, these feel like industrial, but like in a one-off way, like somebody made just one of these in their workshop class or something. So it's got this sense of quality in the sense of the materials feel high quality, but it also feels a little amateurish, if that makes sense. This is the 2020 version of this. So when you look at the pads here, you can see these look like standard pads on the side. So this is how you put them on, and this would be the back. When you look at the front here, you see how much thinner these are. And I believe when they changed these in the 2020 version, they did this because it helps with the sloping on your head ergonomically, and I believe these new pads did adjust for some of the sound issues that were in the older ones. So rather than changing something acoustically, if I understand it right, I believe they changed these pads so that it would address some of the issues that they had with some peakiness and stuff before. So on mine here, you can see, like when I'm talking about the quality of the build, like these are just actual screws that screw out. And with mine, all right, I don't think it's this side. So you see this? So these screws are in there tight. I think it's this one where, one of these, yeah, I think it's this one here. The screw is just like popping out, like it's just falling out. And maybe that's why the other person sold them. So I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. Was there some issue with this? But it just kind of shows the more amateurish build quality kind of feel that you get with these, which is a little disappointing for something that's like a $300 headphone. So you get this weird mixture of high quality industrial strength kind of feel, but also this feeling of it being kind of amateurish and like parts that they found at the hardware store and just kind of threw it together, which is weird because when you put this on your head, like when, you know, these are hanging up and you grab them, what I found myself doing is I put my fingers on them like this, and it's kind of sharp and it doesn't feel very good here. I'm prying them apart and then putting them on my head like that. And then once they're on your head, they're kind of comfortable, but they're also like, they kind of feel heavy and like, okay, well, I'm glad they're secure on my head. Like you never lose track of the fact that they're on your head and you're kind of concerned, like, okay, I think I got them on there good. They feel like they're staying well. They're kind of heavy and, I mean, not terribly heavy, but heavy enough to where you notice them and you feel like you've got this contraption on your head, and that the way that they've built it, it's staying on there pretty good, but you still have this contraption on your head. And when they're hung up on the wall, you see the way that the the connectors are here. Like this thing is so heavy where if this came kind of crashing down, you'd be afraid like these things are gonna snap off. So it definitely feels like something like somebody made a one-off of these, and like you need to carefully put them on the wall and carefully take them off. And when you put them on your head, you carefully put your hands like this and then put them apart, get them on your head. Okay, they're safely there. And then, you know, take them off, kind of hold the sides, carefully take them. So it just has this feel of kind of like this high maintenance kind of feel to it, where like you're afraid it's going to break. It feels kind of heavy, and it feels like something you've got to treat with kids' gloves and be careful with, especially because of their reputation for issues with their quality. It just, I mean, for $300, this doesn't, for the hardware, it doesn't feel like a great investment to me, just because I'm afraid it's going to fall apart on me. So that being said, this cable that I got here, I'll show you, this is a replacement cable. And I'll leave a link to this below, but this is one I'd recommend. I've got one of this style for my Sennheisers and also for the Hifiman here. It's very neat, it's very simple. I think this is like under $20, but it's a nice, simple cable, and it just does what it's supposed to do, and it's got a short length, and it just connects, and it just does the job. I'd recommend picking up one of these, because if you don't, then you're stuck with this mess that comes with it. As you can see here, so it holds shape. It's like it feels cheap. It feels like empty. It's like feels like an empty tube in here, and it's just kind of this crappy cable that I don't recommend at all. Like it's a mess. So I would not recommend, you know, using the cable that comes with it. I'd recommend replacing it. Okay, now when we talk about the sound quality of this is where people are willing to deal with this stuff because of how good that it sounds. So the way that I describe the sound is that the first thing to know is that if you're looking for bass impact, these are not for you. So you get kind of like with the KSC 75s or that kind of thing, where you can hear the bass, you can even hear it alluding to the different kind of bass, whether it's sub bass or whatever, but it's not going to give you impact. There's kind of a light airiness to it, where you feel like this sense of separation on the soundstage, but you don't have a real intimate feel to it. So like I'm going to be talking about the HD58X here in a little bit, but the way that these work is it's kind of wide, kind of airy, and there's like a crisp, just kind of like just barely touching kind of feel to the audio, where it's almost the opposite of like a closed back that would give you lots of impact in the bass, or even something like the HD58X, where doesn't sound as good out of the box as this, but with a little bit of EQ gives you this warm, close kind of intimacy with still a little bit of airiness because it's open backed. That I'm actually going to talk about why I'm probably going to send these back, and actually I just don't find a lot of value in it because I've got alternatives, and also this thing feels just delicate and like it's going to fall apart, and for $300 I just don't think it's worth it. But so that being said, the sound is good, like as long as you're okay with not having bass impact. And that's kind of one of the things that bothers me is, so it's tuned really well, like vocals, guitars, anything like everything is crisp and clean. Although there is, with the kind of wider soundstage, it does, like it kind of feels like it's a little impersonal because it's just a little out there. It's kind of airy and kind of floating, but it is very nice to listen to. This is an excellent pair of headphones, and it's the first type of headphone that I've had where I've had this with IEMs before, but where you actually feel that sense of separation in the soundstage, like there's layers to the sound out there, and that's cool. So there's a lot of really good things about it. There's things that I really like about this in terms of the sound, but I'm also more of like an impact, you know, bass. I kind of want some meat on the bones of the experience that I have, and this doesn't give it to you. It is tuned very well out of the box though, so like if you're somebody who does not want to EQ, these are one of the better options that I've ever heard. The only thing is that if you want some bass impact, you do need to tune that in, and I don't find that these take EQ, like some of the magic in these are lost when you start EQing the bass in. Then it starts feeling like it's a little heavier in the way that it's tuned, and all of a sudden you're not getting that light, airy, light touch, clean kind of sound that that these do an excellent job for. So I kind of struggle with that a little bit. I don't think that you can do a little bit of EQ, which helps with a couple of the smoothness and the highs and the mids, which I think helped using oratories. But I don't feel like you can give these a ton of bass without kind of ruining what makes them special. So what should we talk about instead? So I'm not going to pretend like these are as good, but I tell you that I'm going to keep these instead of the Sundaras, because so these are the 58Xs. You can get these from Drop. They're similar to like the HD 650s or 660s that you can get. I'm not saying they're exact. Don't jump all over me. I'm just saying in build quality and similar sound signature, they're in the ballpark of some of the other Sennheisers if you don't have access to Drop. But I will say, so out of the box, these are not tuned nearly as well as the Sundaras, okay? If you don't have access to EQ, I will not pretend that these hold a candle to them. But with a little bit of EQ, use an Equalizer APO, and that's part of the reason why I put this up on the channel, is that I've got a kind of quick start guide there on how to use that. And I'll leave my the details of the EQ that I use with this, is that if you buy something like this and EQ it a little bit, I won't pretend that this gives you the kind of wide, airy sound that the Sundara does. It doesn't. But I think in its own way, it's just as good in that these are tuned more for an intimate, kind of warm, like clear, and you get a lot better bass impact when you've adjusted these. And I prefer the sound more. And as you can see, I can just I can throw these up on the wall, I can drop these, I can just kind of pick them up. Like, even though these are plasticky, these feel like they're gonna last like a million years. Like I'm never gonna have to worry about them breaking, where these, again, I don't even feel comfortable picking them up with one hand, really. Like I feel like you kind of have to hold them like this and just kind of be, I guess you can, but it just kind of feels like clunky and it's gonna slide. I don't know, like it just feels like a bunch of pieces that are held together and that you got to be careful with. So again, I won't say it sounds exactly the same, but I actually enjoy the bass better in these. Once they're EQ'd, you get less of that open, airy, clear, 3D-ish kind of soundstage going on. But to my ears, I really enjoy the little heavier bass impact. There's a warmth that you do not get with the Sundaras on it, and you get a more intimate vocal that kind of feels like, you know, it feels like you're just more in the middle of the music. It's just like the music is giving you a hug rather than the hug is kind of out there in the fringes. And there may be, you know, I'm sure there's tons of people where they prefer the other. But for me, given that these are like $300 for the Sundaras and these are $150, they don't really have a place for me because of the third option I'm going to talk to you about. So the HD58X, that gives you the option that's more, you know, it's still open backed, it's still warm, it's intimate for vocals, it has nice bass, that kind of thing. But what if you're buying the Sundaras because you like the precision, the clarity, the detail, you're really looking for something that's more clean and clear, and that's why you got it. Again, these are the DT770s. These are tuned much better, I feel like, in the sense of not needing EQ than the 58Xs, but they do benefit from a little bit of adjustment where they get a little bit more bass impact and you kind of clear out a little bit of the higher treble spikes. But these, again, and maybe you're sensing something here, but like these, they're plasticky, but they're hard plastic. They're super comfortable here. But these just, they're all modular. You can take this thing off. You can replace everything in them. These just feel like they'll last forever. I would not worry at all about throwing these in a backpack if I had to or something and bringing them somewhere. And I find on the clarity, especially, you know, the bass impact is a huge deal because even when you turn it up on the Sundaras, I don't feel like you get really strong impact. It starts to get a little boomy, a little loose around the edges, where the DT770, when you crank up the bass, it can just get tight, powerful, like it'll just really start to rock, but it feels like it can handle it just fine. It doesn't lose any kind of detail or clarity. It just feels like drum tight. Like the DT770 just feels like it's kind of built for whatever you want to throw at it. You can tone down because the treble can be a little bit fatiguing at times. You can tone that down just a little bit, but even on stock tuning, these sound amazing. And if you're looking for something that'll give you all the detail that you want and precision of sound, and it'll still, for a closeback, give you a pretty wide open soundstage, I prefer these. So I'm just talking about my personal use case here. For a lot of people, the Sundara is maybe a perfect fit, but I'm just kind of telling you why I don't love them and why I'm not going to be keeping them. So in summary, these guys they're kind of chunky. They feel a little bit, they feel well made and not well made at the same time, in the sense that they feel like they've got expensive pieces of equipment to build this. It feels like, this is all metal construction, but it also feels a little bit jaggedy. It doesn't feel like, like it's not rounded off as much as you would want. It doesn't feel like mass produced for something that's going to last a really long time, like the DT770 and the 58X do. For sound, I do really enjoy the sound. I enjoy the wide soundstage. I enjoy the idea of the layering of the music. The light touch of the bass can be interesting, but for me it kind of bugs me at times. But I find myself wanting more intimacy out of the music. Like, this is the kind of headset where if you're not paying attention to it, it almost starts to sound vague. Like, you have to listen for the clarity. You have to listen for the kind of the wideness and the separation in all of the sounds. It doesn't demand your attention. And sometimes I can be a little bit more where I like something that's got a lot of meat on the bones, a lot of bass impact, and just something that's got a lot of kind of a more juicy sound. And even when I EQ these, they didn't really get me to where I wanted to be in terms of bass impact, because they got muddy. And again, they're the most expensive headphones that I've compared here by far. So for me, they're just not for me. They may be for you. I would advise buying them new, making sure they've got a warranty on them if you do want to buy these. And thanks everybody for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and have a good day. Thank you.